So once again, Akutami has absolutely delivered with a phenomenal chapter. He's thrown in a lot of unexpected curveballs that have a lot of depth and value behind them that can be played upon and theorized in a lot of different ways for a very long amount of time. However, we start off this chapter with Yuta and Naoya, and we've seen the after effects or the conclusion of Naoya and Chozo's battle. The poison that is connected to Chozo's blood and his abilities is starting to take its toll. Luckily for him, Yuta is here to use his reverse curse technique to heal him. However, it comes at a price, to tell the higher ups that Yuji is actually dead. A nice little introduction that confirms our suspicion that Yuta is playing a different game and that there always has been some sort of ulterior motive behind the way he fought Yuji. I still find it funny that Akutami revealed or spoiled this kind of portion of information regarding Gojo going to see Yuta for a very important reason, because that was the primary thing that was fueling a lot of our suspicions when it came to Yuta. Considering that interview wasn't all too long ago, I'm surprised he even bothered to mention it when he would play on it so soon. But once again, here we are. But before that important context, we get a memory of Yuji's past, his parents, the reveal of both his father and mother, which is also connected with his grandfather. There is a lot of uneasiness to unpack within here. The situation itself seems rather complex. We get introduced to Yuji's father, who is known as Jin. We see him holding baby Yuji and his grandfather in a very agitated state, telling Jin to leave that woman and that if he doesn't, he will eventually die. Kind of a hefty conversation or emotion to bring up around the birth of a newborn child, which directly makes me think that Yuji's family is not as normal as we may think they are, which leads me back to the idea that I've talked about rather briefly in terms of Yuji's family being connected to the shaman or sorcerer world. In what way, shape or form, I'm not entirely sure, but with this information now, I think there's a lot more here to play upon. I like how this memory is played upon in a very open way, with Jin, Yuji's father, saying that they shouldn't talk about these things because it could become an unexpected memory that sticks with a baby, and this is exactly how it's happened. Yuji is reflecting or thinking about this situation while he's currently knocked out. Unfortunately, this very moment has stuck, but for us as readers, it's a nice little connection between them both. You could easily just play this as this memory coming from nowhere, which is a very normal thing to do, but going that extra step to directly link it and give it a bit of reasoning on why this specific memory is coming back up is something I genuinely enjoy and appreciate. I'm going to read this next section word for word, that Yuji's grandfather and the concerns he has towards this very specific woman, which as of now we come to know as Yuji's mother. I know that you wanted a child and that you weren't able to have one with Kaori, but Kaori died because of... Suddenly he gets cut off and interrupted by Yuji's mother, and the reveal we get of her is very ominous. We see the exact same brain or forehead scarring that Geto has, which is indicative to the character we have come to know as Brain. Just this alone, I have a lot of questions. Jin obviously had a wife or a partner before this woman came into the picture. Her name was Kaori. She unfortunately passed away and died. Yuji's grandfather thinks that the person responsible for her death was this woman, and knowing the forehead scarring, it's probably legitimate. The real question is why? Because we also know Jin's father at some point also had the brain scarring, thanks to Chozo and the information that he provided, which I feel can only be directly linked to the brain that is specific to Noritoshi or to Geto currently, that there isn't multiple brains or a multiple clan, at least from what we know of. Basically, I don't think there's an abundance of people that are body swapping from different generations between different people. So the why starts to emerge a lot more. Why this person specifically? I can understand Geto, I can understand other sorcerers or individuals, but if for whatever reason Yuji's family was purely human, why would he pick a random person? Why wouldn't he eventually go with a sorcerer like Geto? I think there definitely is more here in terms of power dynamics and social status that Yuji's family has. Maybe they are sorcerers, maybe they're connected to the Kamo clan, maybe this woman specifically is connected to the Kamo clan, which I feel definitely falls in line with Brain being very experimental, theoretically taking over a woman's body that is part of the Kamo clan because of the power dynamics within that structure. It's very problematic, and you can see how Brain may potentially wanted to try taking a Kamo clan woman and having a child with a non-sorcerer potentially, and that is how Yuji's family has been brought into the picture. I guess the other why that you could attach to this is why Jin? Why not a random other family? And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure, but for the most part, if she just went to whatever human family that was planning to have a child and befriended Kaori, killed her off and then replaced her and manipulated Jin to have have a child to experiment on that baby to pique Brain's own interest. You then give birth to Yuji, who is somewhat of a mixed combination of being a half human, half sorcerer slash shaman, and whatever science experiment Brain wanted to do. Then you think about Yuji and him before learning about cursed energy. At the beginning of the series, the very high superhuman abilities that he did have. He was very quick, he was very strong, but had no cursed energy whatsoever, but could easily see them for the most part, if I remember correctly. There's definitely a lot of questions and a lot of great things there, so that may be a separate video all in itself, but I'm curious to see what a lot of you think and what ideas could be born from it. From here, Yuji wakes up, and we see the very kind and warm welcome and somewhat creepy introduction to Yuta. We also get the context behind Yuta's reasoning, which is directly linked to Gojo actually visiting him, so that explains that. For the most part, our suspicions were pretty spot on. Yuta and Yuji are very similar in design and pretty much feel the reason why Gojo went to visit Yuta to begin with. In case anything were to happen to him, Yuta would be the one to pick up the slack and take care of Yuji, especially from the elders. Which he also goes on to explain that the elders put a binding vow on him to kill Yuji. So the reason why he didn't fight him viciously or all out is because he wanted to meticulously kill him in a way that he could heal him, which, to put simply, completes the binding vow. So they're no longer contractedly obligated to do anything. Mind you, he done it on a whim because he heard stories about Yuji dying before and being healed. So he took a gamble with it, and it actually paid off rather well. This is when we get a lot of relatability and compassion between these two characters. The words, "because the people I care about you," very powerful. Goes directly back to the idea of Yuji surrounding himself by people that love him, that care about him, that appreciate him, don't die alone. And as much as he's technically died twice alone, it's still building and following that motion. We see the relatability between them, the burden of great powers on their shoulders. Yuta even somewhat trying to comfort Yuji and saying that it's not his fault, that the reasoning behind the power, Sukuna, has nothing related to him, that he can't control that. Unfortunately, it's not enough for Yuji to snap out of that idea, which perfectly understandable. There's a lot of mental pressure that comes with accepting that. It's a very massive burden that Yuji has to come to learn and understand and grow with, but it's not going to happen overnight. He's not going to wake up one morning and instantly accept everything that he has done and to shred all of this pressure and anxiety that's flowing outside of him. For now, at the moment, at least having a character like Yuta in the picture who is very relatable, who has gone through very similar things, is a massive step in building that healthy mindset again. It's definitely going to be a long road, and it's definitely going to get more volatile, but one that is very much in sight and possible to achieve for Yuji. This is when another curveball comes into play. Megumi arrives, very nonchalantly, but you can tell the atmosphere and the overall aura and tension has shifted in its entirety. It's gone away from Yuji internalizing his burden and his problems to now Megumi, who instantly acts like nothing has happened at all, even offers to take him back to school and to sneak him into the Tengen barrier so we can regroup with more powerful individuals. I love how Yuta commentates over the top of this internally, saying that Yuji is still feeling doubt on whether or not he should really even exist or not. Even going to recognize that Yuji wasn't doing his best or wasn't trying to save himself to the highest of degree towards the end, which I feel like is meant to imply that Yuji was slowly starting to crack and give up with the pressure that was starting to surround him, until being momentarily reinforced by the phrase "I can't die just yet," which is directly connected to Nanami but also fueled on the back end by his grandfather. This is where you can see the tension between Megumi and Yuji start to rise a little bit. Yuji saying that he's killed a lot of different people, that it's his fault, and then Megumi claiming that it's our fault. Not the words that Yuji was actually looking for, and you can tell that things have changed. Megumi's demeanor has been notched in a different direction. Goes on to explain the differences between heroes and sorcerers and how sorcerers are not heroes, so the people that judge them have no sway or connection to do it to begin with, saying that there is no human who can truly judge us, and that's why we have to continuously prove the worth of our existence, going back to the idea of saving as many people as they can. Yuji within his self-doubt saying that as long as I'm by your side, it's you who will be suffering, but he quickly gets pulled out of it by something that Megumi says. First, save me, Itadori. And this is where the final curveball comes into play, the Annihilation Migration, or the death battle that has been arranged by Naruto Otoshi or brain. And you can understand why Megami is pleading for Yuji's help, because Megami's sister is also a part of that Annihilation Migration or death game. She is one of the individuals that has woken up. We basically end off the chapter with a bunch of lists or rules for this death game, which I'm about to go through, but for the most part this chapter was really incredible. There was a lot of amazing things in here, a lot of different emotions, and having it all give birth to a massive game that has so much tension behind it is absolutely exciting. But to end it off, let's read these rules. 1. 19 days after players awaken their curse technique, they must declare their intention to participate in the Annihilation Migration at a barrier. Number 2. If a player does not follow the above rule, their technique will be revoked. Number 3. Should a non-player enter a barrier, they will instantly become a player and will be treated as if they have declared their intention to participate in the Annihilation Migration. Number 4. Players gain points by ending the lives of other players. Number 5. The game master determines the point worthy of players' lives. The standard is 5 points for sorcerers and 1 point for non-sorcerers. 6. Not including their personal points, players can use 100 points to negotiate with the game master and add a rule to the Annihilation Migration. 7. The game master must accept any new rules as long as it does not pose any hindrance to the continuation of the Annihilation Migration. And number 8. If a player has not gained a point within 19 days of gaining a point or awakening their technique will be revoked. This is undoubtedly a massive way to end the chapter. Sets up an arc beautifully and has a lot of emotional connection and tension behind it, just waiting to be so explosive. I absolutely loved everything in here, and I am extremely excited to see how Akutami continues to build upon these incredible things in very interesting and enjoyable ways. So with that being said, that is basically it. Let me know how you felt about that chapter. How'd you feel about Yuji's parents, the Annihilation Migration or the death battle, as well as the conversation with Yuta, Yuji, and even Megami? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.